So, Stephen M. R. Covey, on behalf of everyone here at ALSD, we're so thrilled that you joined us during our conference here this week. And it's a real pleasure to have you with ALSD for the first time. I know that you know something about our conference and the impact that we have around the sports industry and around the entertainment industry, both domestically and internationally. But for those who are watching, Stephen M. R. Covey is the same. He's had a terrific impact in companies large and small globally for many, many years, teaching and lecturing and advising about this very important topic of trust. And so we're going to talk about trust today, and especially those of you in the sports and entertainment industry, how you can garner trust, how you can keep trust, how you can foster it, in your business relationships and also in your personal relationships. I think that's okay, Stephen, if we include a little bit of the personal relationship in this.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you, Rob. And thrilled to be here with you and with all of the folks at ALSD. I must say at the outset, I love sports. My son plays college football for the University of Utah. And so I'm glad that they're back playing and love sports. But I also love the other aspects of entertainment represented, concerts, theater. And so to be able to continue to grow and expand these industries is important to me, as it is for all of you at ALSD.
Well, Stephen, you and your family have been long involved in sports. You mentioned your son, who's a college football player, an outstanding college football player, who not many expected would have the impact he's had in the Pac-12, but he's been well recognized for his talent. But I would like to start kind of at the beginning of what has really been your influence in not only the sports community, but I think more globally in the world of business. And you have said many times that trust is not just some mushy social virtue, but it really is a business driver. It has an economic impact that it actually can make companies more profitable and make individuals more promotable. So can you tell us a little bit more about that idea? Because usually when we think of trust, we think it's just a soft skill.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, Rob. I try to take this idea of trust. Everyone's in favor of it. No one's against it. They all know that it's good. We all do. Trust is important. So no one's going to argue with that. But I say that not only does it matter in terms of a social relationship, it actually matters in terms of economics, because the level of trust affects the speed at which we can move and the cost of everything. And there's a simple formula to it. Whenever the trust goes down, let's say in a relationship or on a team, in a company, in a culture, with a customer, with a prospect, if the trust goes down, here's what you're going to always find. Everything will take you longer to do. The speed will go down with it, and the cost will go up. Everything will cost you more to do. Why? Because you've now got to take all these steps to compensate for that lack of trust. Whether that's checking or verifying or validating, making sure, putting in place rules, regulations. If you can't trust people, it just takes longer. It costs more. That is what I call a tax, a low trust tax. But the good news is that the converse is equally true. And that is when the trust goes up in a relationship, when it goes up on a team, in a company with a client, with a prospect, in any environment, when the trust goes up, the speed goes up with it, the cost comes down. We can do everything faster and at less cost. And that is a dividend, a high trust dividend. And, so in sales, just think about when you've got, a customer and you've built a high trust relationship, you've created value for them and results, you deliver on it, you do what you say you're going to do, they trust you. And they stay a customer and they become a repeat customer. And because the trust is there so strong, and if things happen, if you build that relationship of trust, they're more likely to give you the benefit of the doubt, more likely to stay with you, more likely to buy more from you, buy more frequently in larger amounts, and they're more likely to refer business to you, to tell people, you got to buy from so-and-so because I trust them, and you can too. And this is a great experience. This is a great value. And referral business is really speed of trust in action, because it's your customer telling your prospect that they should trust you. And there's really a transference of trust from your customer to your prospect, and your prospect becomes a new customer faster and at less cost. So that's the idea, that trust is not just a warm and fuzzy social virtue. It is financial. It is an economic driver affecting the speed at which you can move and the cost of everything. And in sales, see, I believe that sales is really trust monetized. We build relationships of trust, and now that gets manifest in the current sales, future sales, as well as prospective sales with other people that might come into the fray. So that's the idea. Trust is financial, not just social.
I think those who know me and have worked with me and my firm GameFace can already hear why I often quote you in my training sessions, because you're absolutely right. It resonates with me. I think everyone who hears what you say says that sounds so obvious. It sounds so right. It's also funny to me, and you've talked about this a lot in your book, The Speed of Trust, which I would encourage everyone to grab a copy of. It's more than 2 million copies sold. It's in its second printing. But you also talk so extensively about this topic of trust. When I read it the first time, a thought that came to me is, how ironic is it that 2 words are most often viewed cynically by the general public? And those 2 words are trust me. When people say trust me, we just go, oh, okay, this is somebody. Now, why is that? Why are people so cynical about the idea of trusting others?
Yeah, because too often it's abused. It's used in a counterfeit way. It's kind of, it's kind of manipulation. It's a technique. It's artificial. It's not authentic. So, trust me. We've even run ads. I've seen television ads, those old was it Isuzu ads with Joey Isuzu, the ultimate liar, what he says. And, he comes back and always says, trust me. And so if you're kind of drawing attention to that, you're just going to have to trust me. So often it's kind of, it's actually emblematic that you can't trust the person. And so in a sense, if you have to beg for it, ask for it and say, hey, look at this, that's quite different than you just leading out by modeling this. It's who you are. It's not just words that you say. You don't just say, I'm a trusted advisor. You demonstrate that through your credibility, and that's who you are. That's both your character and your competence. That gives people a sense of confidence in you because you're a person of great credibility. And that means you have both character, you're honest and you care about them, you're seeking their interest, but also you're competent, you're current, you're relevant, you deliver, you do what you say you're going to do. And that sense of credibility gives people confidence. And rather than you telling people, trust me, it emanates from you. It's who you are, not just what you say. It's being, not just seeming. And so that's important. You start with that credibility, but then you also behave your way into trust. So you talk straight, you tell the truth versus kind of spinning, sugarcoating, exaggerating, overpromising. You make and keep commitments, and you do what you say you're going to do. And it's very easy to fall into the trap of maybe overpromising and under-delivering, because that helps you maybe get the sale, right? But the quality of that sale is not quite as good when you overpromise and underdeliver, because at some point they'll say, oh, I got this. It's kind of what I thought, but not really. It's not what they told me. And the next time you try to make the sale, they say, I'm not quite sure that I trust what you tell me. But instead, if you get that reputation, you're a straight talker. You're authentic. You're transparent. You're open. You're real. You make commitments. You keep the commitments that you make. Then people say, yeah, I don't necessarily always love what I hear from this, salesperson, because, sometimes they tell me, they tell me the truth. And I kind of want to, sometimes I want to be told something else, but here's what I do know. I may not always love what I hear, but I know I can trust what I hear because they are authentic, they're real, they're straightforward with me. So you build that trust through credibility and behavior. It's in who you are, it's in your actions, not just in words that say, trust me, because that tends to turn people off. But let them experience that in their interaction with you, and in the experience they have with you, both in terms of your credibility and your behavior. That makes all the difference. And that becomes authentic versus kind of a counterfeit or an artificial trust.
Even when it's hard, right? Even when it's hard to tell the truth. Absolutely. But the payoff is you've earned that trust, which, as you suggested earlier, leads to greater business opportunity.
Absolutely. In fact, I'd say not just even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. That's when to do it. Can I just give you one quick illustration of this? So I was with architectural firms. I know it's a completely different industry, but it was a sales situation. And the managing partner of an architectural firm told me how they were growing faster than anybody. And it's because they built relationships of trust, but it started with being authentic, being honest. And he said, so many of our competitors were telling the clients what they wanted to hear. And the client would come in and say, yeah, we want to do this, this, and this, but here's our budget. It's only this much. And so many of them would say, yeah, we can do that. Okay, let's do it. We can help you, with the idea that they'll kind of break it to them later that they're going to need more money to do all these things, but they wanted to get the deal. Whereas this architectural firm, the managing partner said that our team will always be truthful. We'll talk straight. And so we'd say to the person, these are all great ideas. The budget you've allocated is not enough to do that. There's other, if truly that's your budget, there's other things we can do for that amount, but it's not what you want. And we'd be happy to do that. But if you want to do this with this budget, we're not your partner. We'd suggest you find somebody else because we can't do it that way. We could do other things. Well, they say, this guy told me that they lost some business, where some people, they went with the people that overpromised, but almost every time the people that overpromised ended up losing that client because they couldn't deliver on what they said. And they came back to this firm because right up front, they'd already established that we will tell you the truth. You may not like it, but we will do it. And so when they got burned by this other architectural firm that couldn't deliver, they went back to someone who'd already built trust with them by telling them the truth, which was that we can't do what you want for this amount. And they got all kinds of business. They were growing far faster than anybody else, but it's because they behaved their way into that. And then they gained a reputation of trust, and that spread and that feeds on itself. It gets word of mouth going, all the things, referral business, all based upon trust.
Well, Stephen, this idea of being truthful, especially when it's hard, we're facing that a lot in our industry of sports and entertainment right now, and venue management and so forth, because there is a lot of uncertainty and we don't necessarily have the right answer that our clients are hoping for because so much of it seems to be out of our control. And so we're kind of sitting on our hands, so to speak, waiting for, bigger decision makers to come down with their edict as to what we can and can't do.
Yep.
So when I hear you talking about this, I'm thinking about that challenge of uncertainty and how that impacts trust. I'm also wondering about the use of tact, because being honest, for some people, they might misinterpret that as, well, just be a bulldozer and just tell them what you have to tell them and don't worry about how it comes across. So can you address either one of those, the role of or the impact that uncertainty has in a relationship of trust, and also how do you balance honesty with being tactful as well? Because I think a lot of salespeople struggle with that constantly.
Yeah, great. Let me take the second one first, and then I'll talk about the uncertainty. So it is a balancing act, and I'm glad you gave me a chance to make sure I clarify. It wouldn't be wise to just go in and being so honest and so blunt and straightforward that you're offending everybody you come in contact with, or you're not, they don't have confidence in you because it's just so blunt. I mean, you can have too much straight talk where it's literally offensive. And so you're always balancing, talking straight with demonstrating respect. And so that you don't go to an extreme. You still want to be optimistic and see upside. It's just that you're real, you're authentic. It is a balancing act. It's not kind of all one or the other. And it's just that I'm arguing for, if you'll operate out of principle as opposed to kind of just out of technique, that's what's the critical thing. But still, in demonstrating the principle, you can still get better at it. You can learn how to do this in a way that is less blunt and is more inviting and more authentic and real. And so that's why we can get better at this. We can learn skills of effectively talking straight while also balancing respect. Those go hand in hand, and listening first and understanding, because you want the person you're selling to have confidence in you. You want them to like you. That's a big part of what you do with Sales Game Changer, becoming the salesperson that people love to work with, because, so you want to build that kind of relationship, and it's usually not the extremes that will get you there. You have some finesse to this, but the danger is if the finesse becomes kind of a technique as opposed to an authentic principle. Intent matters more than technique. And yet you still want to kind of refine, improve your technique. So yes, thank you for, for teeing that up. It's important that we kind of find the sweet spot, the balancing act. And, but I'm just saying, stay focused out of principle, out of intent, not out of technique or something that's artificial, because in the long run, that will not be sustainable.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. And on the other matter, the uncertainty, you're right. It's a crazy world we're operating in right now. And who knows for how long, we're all learning this. So the thing I find is helping leaders and people build trust, including salespeople, is to be as transparent as you can, as open and authentic as you can. And so you tell them what you know, you tell them what you don't know, and then, and how you're going to try to find out, and when you think you can find out, and that when you do find out, you'll let them know. And the whole point is that there is all this uncertainty, but what you can know about me as a leader or as a salesperson is that while there's a lot of things we don't know, when we do know, I let you know. I tell you, I'm not hiding anything. I don't operate with hidden agendas where I kind of know there's something else that might happen. I'm not telling you about it. And people might feel that, gosh, you're trying to make this sell with me and there's so much uncertainty. Instead of just saying, look, here's what we know, here's what we don't know, but here's how we'll approach this. And once we do know, then you'll have a chance to make this decision or that decision. And you'll be the first to know when we do know. And then we'll do this together. And it just shows that we're on this journey together. And I'm an authentic person and I'm transparent. I don't have a hidden agenda. So the main thing would just be that the client, the customer, the prospect experiences you as a real person, as an authentic person, as a transparent person, even vulnerable, to the extent of just saying there's a lot we don't know. Because that invites people to trust you versus, again, trying to put on airs, to act like we know when we don't know, because that will get you in trouble in the long run. Even though you want to, convey confidence, if you don't know, that's a slippery slope. To act like we don't know. But the biggest concern would be to come across as kind of having a hidden agenda. And there's really something that I'm not telling you, because then the whole time I'm saying, what aren't you telling me? I just don't quite know if I can trust you. And they might not say it, but they might feel it. And so again, be transparent instead of hidden agendas. Be open and authentic and real versus, kind of artificial, kind of sweet talking, cover things up and so forth. And including transparent about the uncertainty. that we don't know. And again, it's not a perfect answer, but there is no perfect answer right now.
Right.
But this way, you'll at least build relationships of trust so that maybe when there is a little bit more certainty or stability that comes in, people like, they'll know who to turn to. Just like those architectural clients, when they got burned, they knew who to turn to, someone that told them the truth from the beginning. And they'll do the same with you. When they get more certainty in their world, such that they can make a decision, they'll know who to turn to, someone that they can trust, because you've built that along the way, even when it was difficult, especially when it was difficult. And it's kind of, the new world today is like a high degree of difficulty of the dive, to use the Olympic metaphor of diving. Not all dives are created the same. Some dives are more difficult than others. Right now, in our world, with the uncertainty and the ambiguity, it is a high degree of difficulty of the dive world. And so you're just doing the best you can to build relationships, to build trust. Yes, you want to make sales, make deals, but you want to make sure you also not just make the sale, you want to simultaneously build a relationship of trust so that the quality of the sale is higher, so that they stay with you, so that they give you the benefit of the doubt, so that they refer business to you, versus having made the sale but maybe a little overpromised along the way. And then, the rubber meets the road later. And now the client is saying, gosh, not quite what they told me, is it? And starts to question and to wonder, so you always want to make the sale and build the relationship of trust. Then you earn a reputation of trust. And that's how word of mouth and referral business goes on. So, a lot of stuff there, but those are just a couple of thoughts on that. This uncertainty is our new reality. They call it a Vuca World, VUCA, for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. That's our world. And so we do the best we can, but what we do is we talk straight and we create transparency about this world, while simultaneously also still focusing on our brand promise, on the experience that we're offering people. And the great thing about sports and the sports experience and concerts and the concert experience and the theater experience is that is something that people, experience firsthand. And usually people have experienced it in the past. So you can really tap into what it can do to people and how it's the best of humanity, a great sporting event. And look at society. We're so fractured. Sports brings people together. We need this now. Because you might have, cheering for a team, you've got Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, and just people that would never see eye to eye on anything, but they love their Kansas City Chiefs, or they love, their college team, or what have you. It brings everyone together, and it's needed in society, and so you give those kind of experiences out for people. And again, we don't know when the fans will be back and how, and how frequently, how abundantly, but we do know this: we will ultimately get back to this. This is too much, it's too vital to being human. That we want to be together. We want to participate in great events, great things like sporting events and theater events and concerts. I miss all those things. I want to get back to them. And so having that confidence that we'll get through this. We don't know exactly when, but we will get through it and prevail in the end. So if you can have relationships of trust along the way, it's painful for all of us in the interim, but we'll get there, and then we'll really accelerate.
I think that I hope you can support what I'm about to say. But one of the things that we've been trying to share with our clients during this time is that with all that uncertainty and doubt, and the VUCA, as you described it, the one thing that we ought to be able to convey to our clients and our prospects even is that the one thing they can count on in this world of so many things disappointing them is that they can count on the relationship that they've developed with us, with our brand, and more specifically with us as an individual, that we will do what we say we're going to do. We will be there, and we will be there to not only answer questions, but also try to provide solutions. So, so hopefully you view my teaching in this regard as very aligned with your philosophy and your practices.
Absolutely, Rob. It's 100%. aligned completely in every way. Because what I hear you saying is this, that in the midst of all this uncertainty, all this change and disruption, there's something and someone who has changed less. And that's, that's you, that's a person of integrity, a person that's really out for your best interest, a person who you can trust. That doesn't change. That relationship of trust doesn't change in a sea of change. People, when there's so much change going on, people want something that's changeless. If you can be that changeless core, and by changeless, I simply mean it's not that you're not improving, getting better. You're always doing that. It's just that you're authentic. You are who you say you are. You do what you say you're going to do. You've built a relationship of trust, and you can count on that. You're what you build.
Accountable, right? Consistently accountable. So
absolutely.
Let me actually turn this a little bit towards now more of an internal discussion, meaning we're in this new age where you and I are conducting this conversation via Zoom. Many of the people watching are having Zoom meetings or go-to meetings or whatever, team meetings every day electronically, virtually, as opposed to face-to-face. Is that, in your mind, is that impacting trust internally within organizations between colleagues? If it is it adverse or is it positive? How should we be adjusting to this reality of more virtuality, if you will?
Yeah. Again, it's the reality, isn't it? It's our new world right now. And it will probably be some version of it going forward, more of this. It'll be, it'll be a blend when it's all said and done, but your world will probably have more virtual than ever before. But it'll be a blend, is what I predict. But I think it's kind of like what I said about the degree of difficulty of the dive to operate in uncertainty. Also in a virtual environment where you don't have that proximity, where you're not face to face with someone, even though we're face to face in this sense now, just being in their presence, does matter. That's why events matter, and being able to participate in these events is, it's one thing to watch a game, it's another thing to be at a game, and same with being with people. So the principles of how you build trust virtually are the same through your credibility, through your behavior. It's just that in a virtual setting, you need to be more explicit about it, more deliberate, more intentional. And so, if you get together on a Zoom call with people, with a team or what have you, and you're going to be more intentional and saying things like, hey team, here's what we're trying to do. Here's why we're trying to do it. I don't just assume that they know the why behind the what. Always give, not just the what, always give the why. The why gives meaning. The why gives context. The why can change everything. Give the why to your teammates. Give the why to your customers, to your clients, to your prospects, so that it's what and why. And I think we should always do that, including face to face. I think doing it is even more important in a virtual setting just because we don't have the benefit of that proximity. And so we're more intentional, more deliberate by declaring our intent, giving our why more openly, more deliberately, more transparently. And then also the same thing around expectations and accountability. Like you were saying, Rob, we're trying to be consistently accountable. Consistently accountable to what? To the mutually agreed upon expectations we have of each other. In a sales relationship, am I delivering on what I promised to the client, to the customer? In a team relationship, are we have clear expectations of what we expect? Me as a coach to my teammate, my salesperson back with me, maybe I'm the sales leader or what have you, whatever the roles might be. Clear expectations, agreed upon process for accountability. And again, rather than just kind of assuming we're all on the same page, we're more deliberate, more intentional about clarifying expectations and about identifying a mutually agreed upon process for accountability. But here's one thing I want to add, though. I think right now we have a chance to increase trust with people more than ever before that's a result of the current environment. So this could be a positive. And here's how. Because you got a lot of people doing remote work now, right? Working from home, working from anywhere, mobile work, and maybe a lot more than before. Maybe there was some before. There's probably more now. And again, in the future, maybe it's some hybrid. But I've seen companies approach this, and I'll be kind of extreme to make the points. One is this. I've seen some companies that are kind of saying to their people, hey, you're working from home now, so we're going to need to really, double down on our accountability, and we're going to put in place some controls. And it comes across as surveillance. You don't trust me. And I've seen people use, quote, productivity software. And I'm not against productivity software, but they're really just taking screenshots of people's computers every 10 minutes, mostly not because they're really trying to get productivity, but because they're trying to hover over and micromanage people. And so I've seen some companies say, hey, I still don't trust you. It's just that I don't have any choice now. You have to work remotely. And that trust in those cases is going down even further. But I've seen more companies doing the opposite, where they're saying, look, this is a huge thing that's hit us. It's changed all of our worlds. And we have to operate in new ways. And you know what? We can do this. And we trust you. And so we're going to extend this trust in the remote working setting. And we want to do it with declaring our intent. And we want to have clear expectations and agreed upon process for accountability. But right now, there is an extraordinary opportunity for people, for leaders, to intentionally extend trust to people, to be trusting. And the reason that's so important is that there's a reciprocity of trust. When you give it to people, they receive it and they tend to return it. When you withhold it from people, they withhold it from you. And that's true even with customers. If you don't trust your customers, they tend to not trust you. And you might demonstrate that distrust of your customer in a myriad of ways. But the net effect comes across as, gosh, the salesperson doesn't really trust me, or the company doesn't really trust me. And, that comes across, and they tend to reciprocate distrust back. But when you lead out with trust and you extend the trust and you tell people, we do trust you on this, and we'll just figure out a way to do this. We trust you that we'll do the right thing. Then when you extend that trust, people receive it and they return it. And not only that, they're inspired by it and they rise to the occasion. They perform better. It's a better way to lead. And right now you have the opportunity to, doing remote work, I'm just using remote work as one example. You could approach it with, I still don't trust you. So therefore I'm going to kind of put in more controls and micromanage you from a distance. Or there's a chance to say, I really do trust you. And we have clear expectations and accountability. So it's what I call a smart trust, but I trust you. I trust you to be able to do this from a remote setting, get the job done around these expectations, around this accountability. You can report back to me, just routinely against our agreement. So you're consistently accountable, but not in a hovering over micromanaging way, but rather letting the person report back on their, performance against what you agreed upon. And that feels different. It looks different, and it conveys trust. And right now I've seen more clients build trust than lose trust because they're intentional about this very thing. So that's the opportunity for all of us, is we can actually become more trusting now, not less. And as a result, gain more trust back because it's reciprocated.
It really is an interesting point that leads me to our final question today, Stephen. Many of those who are watching this right now, who are attending ALSD, may be in a new job. Since all of this happened, there has been a lot of transitioning within the industry. People have changed jobs, or perhaps someone's looking right now out of necessity. And I'm not casting a judgment on one way or the other, but that's the reality that we see right now. So what advice do you give to someone who is new to an organization, that perhaps what can they do, especially in this in this predicament we have of more virtual meetings than face-to-face live meetings, what can they do to build trust right out of the get-go, to establish relationships of trust early in their new tenure within an organization? Because I presume that that's very important if you want to establish a long-term reputation and those relationships that you're going to rely on to be successful.
Yeah, great question, and very real for so many of us, all of us really. But I would say this. See, when I talk about how trust is built through credibility and through behavior, and I gave you some examples of behaviors: talk straight, that builds trust; listening first builds trust; do a lot of listening and really understanding people, that will build trust; keeping commitments, extending trust builds trust. You got to give it to get it. So those are behaviors. But it also comes back to your credibility, and that's your character and your competence. And I make the point that the quickest way for most people to lose trust, the quickest way to lose trust is on the character side. You're dishonest, you have self-serving intent, and boy, that you'll lose it fast. And it'd be hard to restore that, a lot harder. The quickest way to build, earn, create trust tends to be on the competent side. That is, you deliver, you perform, you create value. And so it could be just as simple as this, that in these new relationships, you've got, just find ways to make a small value-added commitment to another person. Like, you're having a discussion. Yeah, I'll get you that article, and then deliver on it. And it's always trying to add value. And then when you deliver, you can say, as promised, here's the article we talked about. And then you make another little commitment and another little commitment. And the point is, the fastest way to build trust is that they see that you deliver, you perform, you come through, you do what you say you're going to do. So making and keeping commitments in the little things, it can build trust fast. I've just learned, rather than have it be generic, always try to do it around creating value, adding value to someone. So the commitments are around things that matter to them. That it's not just that I'm going to wake up on time and I'll let you know I'm doing that. That doesn't matter to somebody. What matters is if they promise me information on something, they deliver it. If they promise me that they're going to do this with this client, they did it, or with this prospect, and they do what they say they're going to do. And I say, gosh, I can trust Rob. He delivers. Performs. And so that's the fastest way. And then over time, they start to see that that's who you are. That's your character, not just your competence. But it first gets manifest as competence, as, delivering results, doing what you say you're going to do. And that's kind of a fast track way to do it. And then I would say one other thing would be, if you right up front do what my friend Doug Conant, he's the former CEO of Campbell's Soup Company. And by the way, when he took over Campbell's Soup, they were in the bottom 10% of engagement in the world. And by the time he was done, they were in the top 10%. So we went from worst to first in engagement of his people. He also turned them around financially dramatically. And he said that the number one thing he did was focused on building trust. And the key particular practice he found built it fast with people, and he modeled it, was what he called declare yourself. And it's an idea that I talk about declaring your intent, where you give the why behind the what. Declare yourself is kind of saying you go into a new relationship, and right up front, rather than have people guessing who you are, wondering who you are, and you pretend, you put on airs. Instead, you're open, you're real, you're authentic. You say, hey, let me just tell you a little bit about me. Here's who I am. Here's what I try to do. Here's how I like to work. And I like to build trust and relationships. I like to be real and open and authentic. Help me do it. And we'll work better together this way. And this matters to me. In other words, he says, you take the mystery out of the relationship. And they realize I'm dealing with a real person who's open, who's authentic, who's vulnerable, who's transparent. They're real. And it's just kind of a fast way of starting to build trust. Now, again, don't go to the extreme where you're so authentic and open and you start to confess all your vulnerabilities and, and all your weaknesses. And that's not going to get people confidence, but instead it's more the appealing side of who you are, and that you're a real person, and that you care about people, and that you're really trying to add value to customers and to prospects, and you really want to make a difference with your life, in your world. So the more, confidence inducing side, versus just opening up all your fears. But what they realize, again, you're real, you're authentic, you're not fake, you're not artificial, you're not putting on airs. That can help you build trust faster. And that's kind of heavy on the character side. So combination of competence, deliver results, deliver values, do what you say you're going to do, make and keep commitments, and then character of you're open, you're authentic, you're real, you're transparent. And, you are who you say you are, and you declare yourself up front. There's no mystery. That builds trust fast.
I can't see, if anyone took your advice, I can't see how they wouldn't have a successful launch into a new job, into a new organization. I think those are just wonderful words of wisdom, and hopefully everyone who's new to a job, or perhaps bringing new people into a job, into their organization, they're going to have to apply those same ideas that you just espoused. So thank you so much for that. There's so much more that ALSD members can learn from Stephen. Once again, I would encourage people to get a hold of his book, The Speed of Trust, the New York Times bestseller. It's been a bestseller for many years now, used by hundreds, thousands of organizations around the world, hundreds of thousands of people, 2 million copies sold. If people wanted to learn more about your organization, Covey Link, or about how they might engage you, Stephen, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I would say just go to our website, speedoftrust.com. Speedoftrust.com. There's a variety of tools there, videos, things for free you can just look at, access, and then also you could contact me or through my team to speak at a conference or an event or what have you. And so I'd love to have you just go to speedoftrust.com. That's probably the easiest, best way to reconnect this way. And I want to just say this as we conclude to all of you at ALSD. I'm honored to be with you, truly grateful, and for this opportunity. And I would just say this: in a low trust world, more than ever before, we need people who are trusted. We need people, like you were saying, Rob, who bring stability in all this instability, who bring constancy amidst change, who are credible, who are trusted, a trusted relationship, a trusted partnership, being a trusted advisor, having that changelessness about you. And so while it takes 2 or more people to have trust, it only takes 1 to start. And each of us can be that 1. We need more trust in our world, not less. And each of us can be the catalyst to bring about a renaissance of trust. We need it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen Mark Covey. Appreciate so much you taking the time to be with us.
Thank you, Rob. Great to be with you too. Thanks, everyone.